In this episode, I speak to Kenneth Nell about social selling on LinkedIn. During the conversation, we share 4 key takeaways, and Kenneth advises that you must genuinely engage in conversations to build trust and understanding. Then you can naturally solve problems without expectation of transactions. This contrasts pitching and using relationships solely to gain. He also looks at the different social media platforms. Listen up to this fascinating conversation. I create clear thinking and decisive leaders who can amplify their influence. Contact me to find out how I can help you or your organisation. And today our guest is Kenneth Nell. How are you doing?
Great, Judith. How are you?
I'm doing good. You know what? I've noticed on LinkedIn that you are invariably extremely happy. What makes you such a happy chappy?
Wow, that's an interesting question. One I haven't had before. I suppose one of the guys I really like to follow on LinkedIn is a guy called Gary Vaynerchuk or Gary V, and he has this thing about on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you? And he says, well, if you're above the ground, your kids are above the ground, and your wife's above the ground, you got no reason to be sad.
Mm.
And well, my wife's alive, I'm alive, the kids are wonderful, kicking, not to mention the fact that while England is cold, it's nice to see a blue sky occasionally. And
Oh,
we
yeah.
see a blue sky. So there's reason to be happy.
Sounds good. And Kenneth, tell us more about you.
So in a nutshell, I started life as a salesman selling cardboard boxes. I became a ballroom and Latin dance instructor.
Wow.
Thought it was the only way to meet girls because I am very shy. Turns out it was a good way to meet girls and did actually work. And then went into sales, and from sales progressed into digital. And the world's evolved quite substantially. And one of the biggest challenges I've always had as a business owner is finding a consistent flow of business.
Yeah.
And COVID highlighted that for me because my old model was really a events type model. So I would run an event, invite people in, and teach them about digital. And then they would invariably come back and say, how do you do it? Become a client. COVID arrived, pretty much bar 3 customers, everybody else cancelled. We know why. When COVID came out, I had to source a new place for business. The world had changed. Meetings were not a regular thing. Networking was a problem. Online networking was a bit speed date-ish.
Yeah.
Like it didn't really get the feel of one-on-one real interactions.
Mm.
I was taking strain because I mean my company was turning over like £800 a month, and I met this guy, Miles Duncan, who was really nice and gave me 8 hours of his time for free on how to adapt my digital marketing skills to LinkedIn. And I'll be eternally grateful to that man because, you know, I reached out to a lot of people and a lot of people refused to speak to me because I wouldn't pay them. He didn't. He took the time. And that's how I got into social selling properly. And that's how I'm here today.
Okay, that's really good. So, how do you define social selling?
It's the selling without the force. I feel like sales is a very contrived process. I mean, I've been a salesman all my life. You go for the yes, you go for the no. There's the different types of closes. You've got to say certain things, get the prospect to say certain things. Just the term prospect, you know, the whole process of selling for me doesn't work because it's not problem solving. I'm trying to convince you to take something generally that you wouldn't take. Where social selling is a case of social relationship building, problem solving, and if there is a reason to exchange services and value, then a transaction takes place. But I'm not pitching you anything.
Mm-hmm.
So Kara?
Because like, is that the same as soft selling, just with a new name, or is it a different concept?
I would say social selling is different from soft
Right.
selling, because at the end, soft selling is you're still guiding the person down a road.
Uh-huh.
You might not be using a traditional close, but you are still guiding them into a process. Whereas um, on a social level, and I think there's probably a lot of salespeople who may agree or disagree, um, we're building a relationship before we problem solve.
Yeah.
And in selling, there's a discovery call with a view to solving the problem based on the discovery call. But it's a case of when we're on a discovery call, you know you're on a discovery call, and you know that everything you say, I'm going to use against you, I'm going to use for you, I'm sorry, to solve a problem, which I want you to tell me, and that's going to be how I'm going to do the deal.
Uh-huh. I don't do discovery calls. I guess when I think about it now, it's probably because of the way you describe it, it's probably why I don't do them. I just rather just talk to people. I don't like to say, let's set up a meeting. It's because it's a bit of a jest, isn't it? Because it's not even semi hidden that you're trying to sell something to somebody. Why would somebody turn up unless they want to be sold to? And if they're in that mindset anyway, why not just have the conversation?
Exactly. Um, the challenge I see for a lot of people is the conversation is the elementary part. Getting the conversation is the complexity.
Mm,
If you think about telesales, SDRs, sales development representatives, their job is to get on the phone, hit the digits, and phone 100 people a day, and hopefully speak to maybe 3 or 4 people a day. And
gosh, that must be hell.
I did it long ago in another life. The amount of people that tell you to the words that they use are colorful to go away. Um, you've got to have a thick skin. It's not for everyone. But if you don't do it, you won't get clients. And if you're a small business, a micro business, a solopreneur, they say the failure rate is really high. I think probably one of the reasons is they just don't know how to do cold calling and selling. So they kind of wait for the business to come to them.
Mm. Okay. Now, how does one then get people to that conversation?
Conversation starters.
Mm.
Yes. You engage. So from a social selling perspective, you want to engage with people where they are so that they can see you the way you are.
Hmm.
So the modern buyer now happens to exist in a lot of them are on LinkedIn, looking to learn, grow, network, just engage on LinkedIn. So
Mm.
if you're looking for new business, there are some like really basic rules. Well, I wouldn't say rules, I'd say more like guides you could follow.
Hmm.
And all of this is on the basis that you have a LinkedIn profile that shows what you do, that looks pretty, that all the check boxes are checked. I mean, that's a whole other conversation, but it's a given that your profile is done. Then you need to go and find conversations and jump in there and not pitch. I don't know if you've heard the term commission breath.
Commission?
Breath.
No.
So in sales, when a prospect says you've got commission breath, they can smell your desperation for a deal.
Oh, I understand. I've never heard that term before.
And watch it. Now that you've heard it, watch when people are desperate to close that deal. Month end, trying to hit quotas. They they like push really hard and they're overly friendly or overly fake,
Yeah.
and it's very off-putting. If you get into a conversation like you and I did, I mean, we just started having a conversation, and one thing led to another, and now I'm on your podcast, and life moves forward. We didn't start the conversation with a view to trying to sell anything to each other.
Yes, and I seem to remember because it's been a while now, but I remember it must have been a bit like the guy that helped you when you needed to. Because I think we were having a conversation for something or other, and then I said something like, "You asked me the questions like why people buy from me," and then you went, "I've been looking at your testimonials, and these are the reasons," and I'm like, "Oh," because at that point I had never really done any analysis of the testimonials. It had never even occurred. I mean, like, I loved them when they come in, and I love the fact that people have said such nice things, but I had never done any analysis of it. And then when you read back to, I was like, oh wow, and it just didn't even occur to me. And it's embarrassing now thinking about it.
No, it shouldn't be. You know how many people don't actually read their recommendations when they're given to them?
Oh no, I did read them.
Now you're kind of going to go, wow, so those are the words they use to describe me. That's the language I should use to attract more of those kind of people. That
That's what I missed from the conversation because whilst I analysed them in the sense of when they came in. I think there's 120 or 30 or something like that. I'd never analysed them en masse before, and that tells a much different story than looking at them on an individual basis. So thank you for that. I learned from that.
and it was a conversation that didn't end up in a financial transaction, but both of us learned and both of us gained. And when I look at social selling, that's kind of the way, when I talk to somebody, they're either going to become a friend, they're going to become a referrer, or they're going to become a client.
Mm.
And I approach every conversation, every new person I meet on LinkedIn as a friend, with a view to saying, is this somebody I could have a pint with or a coffee with? And if they do evolve to that level, the other two come naturally. They will tell me. I mean, in any conversation, somebody will tell somebody their pain. And if you can solve it without trying to, and that's where I think people lose the relational part and the social part. They immediately flip over into sales part and problem solving, as opposed to going, we can help, and giving freely, instead of saying, I can solve your problem, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah. I mean, I remember somebody that I knew fairly well for a long time, but hadn't been in touch for quite a number of years. And they suddenly got into touch, and we was having this conversation, few conversations, and I was loving the fact, I was really enjoying it. And then they hit me with this big sales pitch that came out of nowhere. I had not seen it coming because I was, oh, I'm talking to this person that I'm friends with. Well, I've spoken for years, but that's my friend. And then they just hit me with this. And then I was like, oh, I didn't know what to. I was like, let me think about it. And then they went dead, not speaking to them since. And it was like, and I had such a sense of loss. I felt so heartbroken in a way because I had seen a friendship that didn't really exist. Well, it probably did exist, but I was more a prospect now, and I hadn't seen that change. And I think so. It soured the relationship
It
because
would.
of that.
It would. And I blame network marketing for that completely.
Mm.
I used to be part of Golden Products and Amway, and they always told you to target the family and friends on the basis that you have a great business idea.
Mm.
And it eventually didn't sit with me because it wasn't. I mean, you're literally taking your products to your friends and saying, "Can I have your money?" and using the friendship as a way in.
Mm.
Whereas on social selling, I'm not using the friendship as a way in. I'm using the friendship to build a friendship. And if there's a problem that I can help you with, I'll solve it. And in my world, I've gotten to the point where I'll give you time, but if you want me to execute, I'm going to charge you for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for me, I think a really simple distinction is talk to somebody, share your IP. People say my IP is my money. Well, that's okay, because your IP is everybody else's IP. Everything's available on the web. There's nothing that I can't find technically to solve a problem. What I can't find on the web is your emotion, your passion, your ability to see me for who I am and solve my problem from that level. And that the only way that gets seen is if we have a conversation and we get to know each other.
Mm. So how do you do your social selling on LinkedIn? Because I noticed that you have a very distinct style of writing.
I do. And it's taken a while to evolve to this point. And
Mm.
I think some brand experts would disagree with my brand. And some people, I don't know. I've gotten to the opinion where I heard a guy speak once on stage and he broke the world into 4 quarters.
Mm.
He said 25% of people hate you no matter what you do. So don't bother trying to make them your friend. 25% of people on the world are looking for a reason not to like you. 25% of the people are looking for a reason to like you. But most importantly, 25% of the people in the world are going to like you no matter what. And on LinkedIn, there's 1 billion people. I'm happy with the odd chance that 250 million people will like me as I am, bald, gray, wearing a hoodie. And and that's why I've taken my writing, my brand from suited and booted, which is what it used to be, to what I like doing. Being nice, making people happy, being their cheerleader, having conversations. Some become clients, some don't. But I always, I know I've had a successful conversation when the person leaves with a smile.
Yeah. You're quite the maverick though, aren't you?
I, I would say it does go against the flow for a
Mm.
lot of people on LinkedIn, um, because they there's a lot of people that are still stuck in LinkedIn 1.0, I think, is the
Mm.
where it's a CV job finder. It's not a business to business networking platform. And when I go to a networking event, or I don't go anymore because I'm always networking on LinkedIn, um, I used to have to wear and dress up and be uncomfortable. Now I'm me the way I am. You like me, I like you, we work. You don't like me, it's okay. And I move on. And since I've adopted that mindset, and obviously I do a couple of other things as well on LinkedIn, um, I wake up every morning and I've got between 4 and 6 new conversations in my direct messages. And
Mm.
it's none of they're not saying, can I buy your service? They're saying, help, I'm stuck. And I give them help. And from that, they then have the choice to have a conversation with me. And I do. I have a lot of conversations. I was joking with some of the people I spoke today. This week, I've got 3 hours spare,
Mm.
which for a business owner who's growing his business, that's great.
Yeah, I could get that some people would say that you're doing it all wrong because you're giving all that advice and only a fraction is coming back. Because obviously you're having lots of conversations, so a fraction of those are coming back and paying you. Um, what would you say to that?
I'd say I use the metric of 100 connections, 4 conversations, 1 sale, and 75 videos, £28,000 in contracts. Yeah, if I'm doing it wrong, that's fine. I'm happy the way I'm doing it wrong.
And also having the conversations is quite a lot of fun though, isn't it? And you learn loads when you exchange ideas. I would hope to think I gave you something to think about in our conversation that we had. Was it 3 years ago now or
It,
something?
it was 3 years ago, and you did make me think about in my place where I was at that time. Um, I was suffering hugely from imposter syndrome,
Oh yeah.
and just the mere fact that I could add value to your life made me go away thinking, okay, maybe not everyone has got everything as waxed as I think they've got it waxed. So don't beat yourself up as hard as I had. And as a solopreneur back then, and now I'm a small little business owner because I've got a small team of 14 people, the mindset of how hard we beat ourselves up about not getting it right, about we're not good enough, about we can't be good because look at everybody else, how amazing they are. They've got it all together. When you talk to people and you see them for who they are and you meet them, it's nice to see that you're not the only one who hurts or feels lonely. And that conversation just made me feel better about myself, which I don't know if that was the intention, but thank you.
Yeah, people do say that after talking to me. So, but I think yeah, I think it's quite interesting because we're all at different places at different times, and even if you think you understand, because I think at the time I was actually rebranding, I think.
Yes.
So it was a timely conversation that helped a lot because it helped the brand grow because I just looked at what people have said, and hadn't occurred to me before. But I mean it and I suppose that advice has lived on through my business clients because I tell them to do the same thing. So and they'll probably tell their clients the same thing. So there's a huge, and I think sometimes consultants, we forget the ripple effect because we dealing with one person, but forgetting that one person is then talking to lots of people.
And that so when we do what we do, and people say, yeah, but you're giving away all of that advice for free. It's not advice. Every person I talk to, I'm having a selfish conversation because
Mm.
I want to learn from them about me and about them and their skills. And I'm sharpening my sword and I'm getting better every time at my conversations, at my ability to spot where they're suffering and how can I be supportive. So sure, I'm giving away a lot of stuff for free, but I'm also taking a lot. I'm growing a lot. And the more conversations I have, the better I am at mentoring, coaching, and supporting.
Yeah, I agree. So social selling, it's as a concept can't work if you don't genuinely care about the other person and you're curious about the other person. Because if you're just looking for the sale, then you're not. I keep wanting to say soft selling. You're not social selling at all, are you?
You've hit it spot on, like on the nail there. If you don't genuinely care and are not genuinely interested in the other person, your
Mm.
body language will show it, even on video. And they'll pick it up and they'll go, okay. And buyer's remorse will kick in. They'll find a reason to cancel the contract. Something will happen and that deal will go sour. Whereas if you really care about them, and you really genuinely want them to be better off, if it's real, you can't fake it. I mean, you can't
Yeah.
fake real interest, which is also why some of my calls, unfortunately, are only 15 minutes because some people I meet, I really can't be interested in them. Then I, I, I just, I can't work with the inauthenticness.
Uh-huh.
And then
Gotcha.
like, when people post about I've made millions doing this and this and this, and I've done, and this is how I do £300,000 a day in sales, and you're like, really? I've dealt with some major influencers that are working wonders, and they don't say that.
It's true. It is true.
Yeah, I mean, I look so. one of the guys that really inspired me on LinkedIn was a guy called Justin Welsh.
Mm.
I mean, he's got almost 500,000 followers. I never see him telling people that he made $1 million today.
Mm.
It's not, no, that's not real. And sometimes I talk to people and I ask a couple of questions, and it was like I would go to a networking event and a person would tell me in this very hoity-toity attitude that they are extremely sophisticated, very well off, their world is rocking. But when you leave the event, you go to the parking lot and they've got 4 ball tires and they're driving a 2-door 1996 car. That's
Yeah.
not ringing true. And when you're doing social selling, or when you're doing social and having a conversation, very quickly you can pick up when somebody's not being true.
Let's listen to a quick advert.
The Maverick Paradox. Judith Germain is an author, speaker, consultant, mentor, and trainer, and the leading authority on Maverick leadership. She is the founder of the Maverick Paradox, which supports organizations to enhance their leadership capabilities and to help business owners develop and grow their businesses. Judith enables individuals, business owners, and organizations to improve their impact and influence. She is also HR Zone's leadership columnist, and her expert opinion has appeared in national, international, and trade press.
Welcome back to the Maverick Paradox. This is the podcast for the pathologically curious. Yeah, do you think that's the juxtaposition of the more traditional way of running the business, where you need to not be vulnerable, you need to have a facade, you need to show that everything is perfect? Because if everything isn't perfect, no one will buy from you.
That was, and for some people still is, I agree, the problem of doing business. You've got to, I had a chat with a lady at a AI class that I'm attending, and she said big companies want guarantees from little companies that they won't go out of business. And what irks me about that is they forget that they were a little company as well. And they got a deal. And like somebody like Microsoft, everybody's like, Microsoft have these guarantees. Yes, Microsoft want to support little business, but they have onerous terms for a supplier. They forget that Bill Gates got introduced by his mother to the guy at IBM who gave him a chance to make him grow a business. And every little business needs that chance. But how do I know if you need that chance if you're telling me you're so good you don't need new customers?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know whether it's the same in other countries, but it's, do you know what I mean? I don't know whether it's just a facet of being in Britain. I don't know.
No. For my sins, I built a business in South Africa. Same thing. People like to pose, tell you how great they're doing. When you get to know them, you realize it's not the truth. I then went to Charlotte, North Carolina, set up a digital agency in the States, picked up clients really quickly, got to know the clients. Same thing. They would come in there and they are suited and booted, the epitome of success. I'd get to know them and I'd have to pay for the coffee because they didn't have money to pay for the coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in England, and it's not a country or a cultural thing. It is definitely a mindset thing where somebody still thinks you can't build in public. And what I love on LinkedIn is there's a movement growing, encouraging founders and startup businesses to build their business in public.
It's quite courageous to do so, though, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is, because you are taking a risk. If somebody is old school and they look at you, well, you're too much of a risk, I'm not going to do business with you, you lose their prospect. But when you've got 1 billion people that you can potentially engage with for business, and yes, I know there's not that many businesses, but people work in companies, they work for businesses. Somebody's going to like you. Just be yourself, share your pain, share the way you're solving problems, talk about it, reach out, jump into conversations, offer your time and your support, and don't pitch Whatever you do, don't pitch. Show up, but don't pitch. And business will evolve. I'm getting referrals from people I've spoken to 12, 18 months ago who are cycling through the system going, oh, we need LinkedIn training. Oh, well, this guy helped me out a year and a half ago and he didn't charge me anything. And I get a referral that turns into a customer.
Mm.
But I didn't help them for the reason of getting a customer.
Yeah, it's like I stay in touch on an infrequent basis, not scheduled, not using a CRM system, which is probably everyone's going to beat me up to about now, but with old clients, because I'm just genuinely interested in what they are doing. So it's just, I might just wake up one morning and go, oh, wonder how Kenneth is doing, and I'll just give you a ring. It's that kind, but it's not planned or scheduled because it's not in my head of selling. It's like I just genuinely want to know 4 years ago how are you doing.
Exactly. Yes. And so I'm a little bit lazier than that. So I wake up every morning and I look at my LinkedIn profile and I look at who's viewed my profile. And if they're first connections that I haven't spoken to in a while, I drop them a note, a voice note, a text note saying, hey, we haven't spoken in 6 months or 5 years. And it's amazing. A lot of them come back to me and we pick up a conversation. And some of those lead somewhere. But it's like LinkedIn brings people back and then they look at your profile and you just say hi. I mean, I do a post and I'll get 20 or 30 people who will like the post but won't leave a comment. I'll look at all the likes, I'll look at all their smiley faces, and I'll see who of them are first connections that I haven't had a conversation with, and I'll go and say hi because they've taken the time to show me the love by liking or commenting on my content. And just by that kind of reciprocal nature, you get the benefit of your views go up, your posts get more engagement, people talk to you more often, you have more conversations, and you pick up more business, and you're not trying to sell anything.
But that's good advice. I am going to write that down. Learning from you still, Kenneth.
That's the thing is, every conversation I have is with an expert in some industry or space, which means I'm learning about everything from electrical engineering to aerodynamics to software as a service to cybersecurity to hair extensions and acrylic nails.
Yes.
I don't do acrylic nails, but I can tell you about nail fungus and all sorts of things. And it's because the people you meet on LinkedIn is just, it's fascinating. And the time zones. And I mean, I'm talking to people in San Francisco and I'm talking to people in Los Angeles and I'm talking to people in Australia. And we have a conversation via direct messaging with 12 hours difference, but we're having a conversation. You can't do that anywhere else.
Mm-hmm. That is true. So what I see from you is, I'm just trying to, my brain's just flicking through to see if it still rings true. But from memory, when I think about you, I think about the stories that you tell. Because I'm trying to think, I don't think, or I can't remember seeing a post that you've written that isn't a story. I mean, you might do, but that's not what I remember. I just remember lots of blank spaces and lots of story.
And the storytelling is on the back of who I am and what I've gone through.
Mm.
On the realization, like you said, we're all at different places on the ladder. A lot of people out there think they have nothing to offer, but they forget that they're 2 rungs above someone else who's coming up the same ladder. And they want to know what you did. And, if you look at top influencers, not out of any other reason, they're inundated, so they won't talk to everybody. So if a guy's got 700,000 followers, having a one-on-one is unlikely. But way down the ladder is somebody who's got 5,000 followers who's climbing that ladder. And if you've got 73 followers, I can tell you that 5,000 follower guy as a whole will be more than happy to share why, where, and how. And if I look at my life, my problems I've had, my shyness, my inability to do public speaking, all of those problems are problems that I know people have because I'm not the only one. And my approach to solving those problems, working through the fears, getting to the other side, picking the family up, moving them around the world, reestablishing a business, reestablishing networks. I'm not the only one who's done that. So I'm happy to share it because there are other people who are coming through, and there are people who've been that I follow and I read and I go, wow, if only somebody had told me that before I did what I did.
So do you have to talk about yourself to do social selling?
You don't,
Right.
but it definitely helps.
Okay.
People buy from people. And when you think about your review or testimonial of NatWest Bank or any bank for that matter, and you go, wow, that experience was amazing. HMRC, I had a call with HMRC, and the lady was just, wow, blew me away. And you go, wow, HMRC is so good. No, the person you spoke to is so good. And we forget that that's how we connect, is with people. So when you tell a story and you share your pain, you share your experience, other people out there who are feeling the same resonate, and they may not connect directly, but they'll read it, and you may just save their life, and you may just give them hope that tomorrow the day is going to be better, and it is better. So my stories are there. I mean, I want you to be happy. I want you to have a cheerleader in your corner that doesn't expect anything.
Okay. It occurs to me, thank you for sharing that. It occurs to me that not everybody can be vulnerable in that way because certain groups of individuals are going to attract negative attention just because they're in a certain category. So that vulnerability is just not safe or healthy for them. Is there any other way they can social sell without having to share themselves in that way?
The level of sharing changes. I've seen people talk about their attempted suicide. I wouldn't go to that level. I've seen introverts talk about the challenges they have in a meeting. That's comfortable, but without going too far. I'm part of a social selling group, and between the three of us, we have completely different approaches. I like to tell my story. Dave doesn't really like to tell his story, but he does social selling on the basis of he is actually genuinely interested in the people he works with. Chuck has found that sort of nice middle road between corporate and storytelling. He'll share stories that are light, that people can laugh and engage with, but he won't go and tell you any of the deeper, darker stuff. So at the end of the day, your people are your people. Those people that connect with you on LinkedIn resonate with who you are and as comfortable as you are sharing. And there will always be trolls. No matter what you say, there'll always be somebody, a keyboard warrior out there who will call you and say horrible things. And, I've had a couple of those and I block them. I am a vulnerable person, which means it does chew on me a bit. And that I need to deal with it and get over it. And if I don't get over that, it would push me into a dark space. So you deal with the negativity because we all get trolled. And then you smile, you get up, and you carry on. And within 5 minutes of doing that, yes, while you're down, you're down. But within that giving, I start to feel better immediately. And I'm going to say I'm addicted to LinkedIn. I know people are going to say you shouldn't be, but I get a lot of dopamine out of LinkedIn. And a lot of it comes out of the fact that I'm helping other people.
Thank you for that share. I really appreciate that.
It's a pleasure. It's one of those things that you learn in life. Because I know there are some people that are scared to be vulnerable on LinkedIn, and they're worried that they won't be taken serious, that their bosses will come back at them. It is a risk. Nothing happens without a risk, but when you work through those challenges, you'll find there are communities that get behind you no matter what. I've seen some amazing stories where people have spoken about the way the bosses have abused them during the COVID period and how the community has rallied around them and supported them, and they've gone from questioning their worth to running a business.
That's quite impressive. So how long do you spend on LinkedIn then, since you're addicted?
So I have a caveat for that question, because I get that question a lot. A lot of people say, how much time should I be spending on LinkedIn? And the answer is simple. How much time do you want to spend growing your business?
Good question.
Because if you only want to spend 15 minutes a day growing your business, well, that's cool. If you say, I don't have time to grow my business, so I can't be on LinkedIn, okay? And a lot of people won't finish the, I don't have time to grow my business. They'll say, I just don't have time, I'm busy. Really? You're busy 18 hours a day. You've started a new business. You're wondering where the sales are coming from, but you're too busy to find new customers. I know you might not know how, but LinkedIn is full of people that will show you how. But from a time point, today is a day I've been on in between calls since 7 o'clock this morning. Friday, I won't be on LinkedIn at all. But from a prospecting point of view, the question is, how much business do you want? And if you're prepared to put in the extra 4 hours a day that nobody else is, if you multiply that out by 365 days, everybody's heard the post, 1% a day makes you 300% better than anybody else by the end of the year. Same rule applies to how much time you spend on LinkedIn.
I wonder whether there's a misconception of the purpose of tools like LinkedIn with the business. So it's seen as an inconvenient add-on rather than an integral part of your lead generation or your marketing or your PR or your.
You are spot on. There is a massive misconception amongst a old school generation of business that say LinkedIn is social selling and wasting time. And they're not wrong. A lot of people don't LinkedIn with a purpose, if that's even a term. They get lost in the news feed and wipe out their day. That is absolutely a no-no. I mean, when I go onto LinkedIn, I have a purpose. I know I need to leave comments because I need to get involved in conversations. I know I need to look at certain profiles. I need to record videos and I need to post content, and then I need to engage. And I know I've got a list of people I need to engage with. So every time I get onto LinkedIn, there's a reason I do something. And it's because so many people get lost in the newsfeed that businesses would say LinkedIn is like another social media. It takes a bit of training. It takes a little bit of guidance to show what LinkedIn with purpose looks like. And then as a salesman, I mean, I work with a lot of salespeople. And once they get into the mode of prospecting on LinkedIn, they don't pick up a phone to make a cold call ever again.
So thank you. What about TikTok because there's a lot of social selling going on TikTok for specifically the younger generation.
Yes.
So is it something that businesses should consider doing if they have clientele in that generation space, or should they do it anyway because that generation is still networking and will maybe talk to their bosses or something?
So if you go back in the trend. I'm before computers, hell, I'm before Google. There was a world before Google. People don't know that. There was a world before Facebook. And at the start of Facebook, everybody's like, no, Facebook is for young people.
Mm.
But Facebook people get older. The same thing with TikTok. TikTok inspires a lot of solopreneurs, entrepreneurs that are at school.
Mm.
They get older and they're used to the platform, so they live on the platform. TikTok's not the easiest thing for older people like me. I've tried to make videos. My daughter has forbidden me to go back to TikTok because I'm so bad at it.
No, Daddy, no.
Yeah, it's exactly no. And it's because some of my videos arrive on her For You page. She's horrified. And I understand because, there's that thing between parents and their children. Children just, can't believe parents can be silly because we were never kids. We were never teenagers.
Yeah.
And I do think there is a lot of social selling happening on TikTok. I've seen personally, because I do like TikTok, the engagement. I've seen LinkedIn teachers on TikTok. I've seen B2B services on TikTok, good and bad. So good, they've done it fun in a really entertaining way where you can learn, but then bad where they've done it as if they recorded it on a computer and then forgotten that TikTok is on your phone. So
Yeah.
it just there's learning required, but that I wouldn't really say that's social selling in the sense that we're spoken about today, because you and I are having a conversation. On TikTok, it's more of a broadcast medium.
Mm.
And then I can comment and I can splice and I can spread, but we don't really have a conversation.
That is true. That
in,
is true.
in the way you and I are doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
people would argue, no, we converse on, sorry, I heard the term the other day, conversate on LinkedIn, I mean, on TikTok, and I'm going, conversate is not really a word, but I'm told it is. And they conversate a lot on TikTok via messaging. And I suppose they are having a conversation. So there may be social selling involved in that, but I'm not the expert. I'm not going to weigh in on that. But I think there is definitely.
Yeah, I think you got a point. They're selling on a social, but they're not social selling as defined what we've been talking about. You're right.
Agreed.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Before we finish then, Kenneth, is there any last words you'd like to share?
Don't be afraid to pull the trigger.
Oh, tell me more.
Fear gets in the way of 90% of people's posts and social selling efforts. The
Yeah.
fear of a selfie, the fear of I'm going to be criticized for the content, the fear that nobody's going to leave a comment. Newsflash, you're not the only one. Millions and millions of people post every day and they get zero engagement. They get 10 views, they get crickets, but the difference is they keep posting and posting and posting and engaging and commenting.
But
And
you know what's weird about that, Kenneth, and I know you're going to agree, I think, is that sometimes the posts with the least amount of comments, the least amount of likes is actually the one that you get the most money from.
it's happened, definitely has. Somebody's seen a post and gone, that person speaks my language, and reached out directly without even commenting.
Yeah.
And just on a side note, the people that you comment on aren't the people who are going to buy from you. The people who buy from you are the lurkers, the silent community. They watch every move you make, but they never let you know they're watching. So just because there's crickets and tumbleweed on your news feed, don't give up. Push the button, pull the trigger, keep posting every day. Talk to people every day. All that's going to happen is you're going to get better.
Yeah, and like what I say to my business owner clients is that even if it appears like no one's paying attention, like you're saying, and there are the lurkers out there, when they do find you, they look back at the history. So the fact that you're consistently posting relevant thought leadership type stuff is what's going to convince someone to buy. Whether whether there's views or comments on it, if they find you and then they read you or watch you and they like what they see, they won't care if other people are commenting or not.
Precisely. And they can't see you if you don't post. So if you don't pull the trigger, nobody's ever going to see you.
Kenneth, you've been wonderful.
You're too kind. Thank you, Judith.
I really enjoyed the conversation and thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, it's absolutely a pleasure.
And thank you out there for tuning in to the Maverick Paradox podcast. I am Judith Germain, your host, and I hope you've enjoyed our conversation today.
The Maverick Paradox Magazine. The Maverick Paradox Magazine is for the pathologically curious. Written by a swagger of socialized mavericks who are divergent thinkers, the magazine tackles the biggest issues affecting maverick leaders today. You might be a business owner or a leader within an organization who wants to have your thinking challenged, to be exposed to a diversity of thought, or to learn from diverse experts in their fields. If so, the Maverick Paradox Magazine is for you. Join the swagger at themaverickparadox.com and engage in the conversation.